everyone. How are you guys doing? Welcome to another episode of the Pearl Tips. I just want to give it a little bit more time so that YouTube can catch up with what I'm doing. So there we are. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the Pearl Kennedy Group. Woo, the Pearl Kennedy Group presents the Pearl Tips Talk Show. So thank you all for tuning in. I have a special guest on today, and as usual, we do a prayer. So before I begin, I would like to do a prayer before I introduce our guests. With respect to you, you can put me on mute or fast forward, whichever works for you, but I like to start the show with a word of prayer. So, Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and thank you for this opportunity to be here again and just spread some good news and some joy and some information to the people. I pray for all the individuals who are experiencing any negativity or mental health issues, domestic violence, or have issues with breast cancer, Lord. I pray that you would show up and show out, Father God. And I thank you for this day. In your holy name I pray. Amen. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So this is October 1st, and October 1st is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, as well as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I know there's other things during this month, but those are the two that I am aware of. So if you guys know anything else, feel free to share it. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can also comment live if you have any questions. I'll go ahead and read them off. So our guest today is Renzo Barredo. Renzo has been in the financial service industry since 2010. His attention to detail, passion for others, and a drive to make true difference in this world drives him to work with his clients. After just 2 years in the industry, he lost his best friend, which catapulted his new passion related to mental health. Since then, Renzo served on many boards and committees, helping to educate society about mental health and the stigma associated with it. His passion has fueled him to become a huge mental health advocate who has helped merge mental health with financial health. The stigma associated with mental health and financial health has truly created an epidemic in our society, which he is determined to address daily, both in work with his clients and members of the community. Through his experience, both personally and professionally, he has realized the significant role that financial stress plays in society. In response to this, his approach with clients is educating them on how to become more financially healthy. So I would like to bring in our guest, Renzo Barredo. Woo!
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I am doing well. So, Renzo, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you being here. We actually met last year at the Broward Summit Mental Health Summit, Broward County Mental Health Summit. Whew, mouthful. There was one that actually just passed not so long ago, a couple of weeks ago, probably like close to the end of September. But we're gonna start off with um, what kind of led you to fuel mental health with financial health? Because it's something you don't really see very often. What made you fuse those together?
All right. Well, first and foremost, Danielle, thanks for having me. It's crazy how time flies. It's been a year already since the first time we met at the Broward Mental Health Summit last year. And then we just had it this year virtually because of the whole COVID thing. So it's awesome to be here with you. First and foremost, kudos to you for doing these, every so often and really touching base on really important topics. I think education and providing clarity for the community is absolutely essential. So I'm proud of you. That's really good stuff. Um, in terms of finance and mental health, it took me a while to kind of realize this, and I've been in the industry, like you said, for 10 years. And when I first got into the industry, I was kind of learning a little bit about the industry, learning about what people are dealing with from the financial perspective. And it took me some time to start to realize and piece the puzzle of the connection between both mental health and financial health. As you stated earlier, I lost my best friend, unfortunately, to suicide in 2012. And after that, after I dealt with it my own way, I would always speak with people and tell them about my buddy and just how proud I was of him and what had happened. And it was, I guess, my way of therapy, if you will, to cope with it. And in doing so, stories would really start to come out, and people would just start to be vulnerable. And I started to realize there that in addition to some of the financial stress that they were dealing with, there was a lot of mental health stress, if you will, or mental health obstacles that they were also dealing with. So I started to do some research, and I quickly found out that there was indeed a direct correlation between financial stress and mental health, if you will. And I really I took I guess, a passion in it, dove in deep, and really began to dive in and figure out exactly why it is that people feel the way they do and how could I better serve them in the community. And that's really kind of how this whole thing started.
That's awesome. And that's exactly what I try to do on the show, is to educate the public and just letting them know, get rid of the stigma almost, and just letting them know that it's okay to talk, and it's okay to, find that peace of mind and talk to a therapist or just anyone in general. I know a lot of people in our community, the people of color community, we don't seek out a lot of mental health services. So I feel it. I feel very passionate and honored to kind of educate in my own way, based on my experience and also professionally. So I'm really, really excited that we are talking about this, because finances is huge, especially in this uncertain times.
Mm-hmm.
People are very stressed out with finances, and I'm sure that's affecting their mental health. So, in your opinion, how do you think, or have you seen in your industry, finances directly affect mental health? What are some of the things that you've seen?
Yeah, so like I said before, in talking to people, you start to hear a lot of stories on how, I guess the concern of paying the bills, making it paycheck to paycheck, figuring out ways of being able to save more money, people being concerned about the future, whether it's saving for their kids' college or retirement, or just saving for a trip that they want to take with their family. You see people tense up and have anxiety in terms of that. Um, and that was pre-COVID. Now you throw COVID into the mix of everything. And really, we started to see this at the forefront. It's crazy because a lot of people would say to me, so how's everything going on with business? How is everything going with, your clients and so forth? And in talking to other colleagues of mine in the industry, we all, I think, collectively could agree that we have been swamped since COVID has really started. I think what COVID has done is kind of brought what's already been going on to the forefront. And unfortunately, we see firsthand now with people being furloughed or even let go in their jobs, they're trying to figure out how to survive every single month. It was already a challenge enough to be able to save enough money in case there was a rainy day or an emergency. You throw in the obstacle of COVID and having to work virtually, or if you're a business owner, having to figure out creative ways of still, making sure that your business is still thriving. Or if you've been furloughed or let go, that's also a challenge. So it's really been at the forefront lately. And in terms of that, unfortunately, and in the mental health community, unfortunately, I think numbers of anxiety and depression have gone up, skyrocketed, with COVID. And I think financial stress has definitely probably played a tremendous part in that. So they're challenging times. You said something good. You said a couple things good, but you said that it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about finances and you talk about mental health, I think that's the big thing that we have to remember. It's okay not to be okay. We were talking 10 minutes before we were jumping on. Both you and I were nervous, right? Let's break the ice right now. Both of us were nervous. And I was saying, who cares? If we mess up, we mess up. It's all organic, right? It's even better that way. And it truly is, because at the end of the day, vulnerability gives others the ability to be vulnerable. And I
Right.
think in this case, listen, stuff happens. Ask for help. You're not alone. In fact, you're more of the norm than not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's definitely important. And I think addressing the stigma of both mental health and financial health is extremely important. So, see it firsthand every single day. I see it more and more now with COVID, unfortunately. So now we have to do a better job as far as financial professionals to serve our community the way they deserve it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's funny that you say that because I get nervous every time I do this. Every time I come on the
It's
show.
normal.
But
It's normal. It's totally normal.
yeah, you touched on like saving for retirement or just savings in general. During this time in COVID and like not having a lot of like spare change, I guess, what would you recommend for people to kind of do or money wise? Should they save for retirement or should they kind of just save?
So that's a good question. Every situation is vastly different. And I tell people all the time, if you take 10 different versions of Renzo, for instance, same age, same person, but different situations, you're going to see 10 different variations of that Renzo. And each and every one of those deserve, I guess, a unique plan, if you will. So to answer that question, there isn't necessarily one thing that everybody should do, but I would say the very important part is to really hyper focus on your budget. And I
Mm.
think that as a society, people cringe when you say budget. People cringe when you say, well, let's look at see what's coming in and let's see what's going out. And I think that's just because we as a society, we like to treat ourselves. We like to have fun. We like to spend. And sometimes we forget the most important thing, and that's spending it on ourselves, saving for the future. Now, in terms of COVID, one of the things that people can really do in hyper focusing on the budget is just making it a little bit easier for them. I have actually done this for myself just to try it out so that I could see if it's something that I think clients would find benefit of. But if you kind of take a look at your budget and you really take a look at all the expenses that you have on a weekly basis, or even on a daily basis, or on a monthly basis, any of those variations, it'll work. And what you do is if you look at all your accounts, so a typical bank account may have a checking account and a savings account. Some of the banks have a checking account, a savings account, and then a savings account 2.0. They have like 3 different accounts. I still don't know what they're for, but they're there. And what you can do is you can actually transfer money on a weekly basis and drip money into your checking account where you're directly paying your bills as you know your bills are coming due. And what that does is it doesn't necessarily force you to save, but it makes you more aware of what you're spending money on. So if you're spending money on the essentials, and then let's say I decide that I want to do some takeout and maybe get some, I don't know, La Bamba Mexican food because that's what I'm in the mood for, right? I know that I may be overspending. So it just makes you a little bit more aware. That drip idea. Um, the other thing too is anticipate holidays, anticipate birthdays. Rumor has it the 2 very important birthdays are coming up. I won't say whose, but they are coming up this month. So anticipate those birthdays, anticipate that spending. Yeah, there you go. You pointed it out. And those are really important things. I think the key here is to plan ahead. Make sure that you're not kind of, just winging this, if you will. And I think pre-COVID, everybody had a paycheck that was coming in. Their expenses were kind of set. They were kind of set in their ways, and it was kind of easy just to keep on keeping on the way they were. Now it's a lot more challenging. Now we have to be a little bit more flexible because we have no idea what tomorrow brings. So it is a little bit more of a challenge. Now, to answer your question about retirement, if you're able to do it, then yes, you can save for the future. If you're not able to do it, then be flexible with yourself. But I think the most important thing here is to ask for help. Ask for help, whether it's myself or whether it's another financial professional. Ask for help. I think doing nothing or not asking for help is really not the option. I think you're going to hurt yourself more by going that route as opposed to asking for help.
I think there's this idea that financial professionals are for wealthier people, that the everyday average person can't uh, get in contact with a financial professional. And here you are, a person who is in the community and doing good and advocating. So it's in your reach, people. I'm gonna give you his contact information.
So you brought up a good point. It's funny because I have notes here, so I don't go on rants like I do sometimes. But one of the biggest things that I get all the time pre-COVID, if I was at a wedding or if I was at an event, people will say, When I'm ready to meet with you or talk to you, I'm going to give you a call. And I would always say, well, what does that mean when you're ready? Like, what does that mean to you? And they're like, well, I don't really have much disposable income to give you. So the big misconception is you have to have money to get some sort of professional help. Huge misconception. So let me give you an example. If for whatever reason you find yourself in a bind in life in general, you yourself have the ability and are worthy to ask for help, and you should. It's no different in our industry. Our job is to build out a blueprint for people and help them out and guide them and be there with them every step of the way. And when the time is right to start to execute on maybe some strategies that would put them in a slightly better position, then that time will come and we can execute. But people really don't need to worry about disposable income. And unfortunately, I think our industry as a whole, we've kind of dropped the ball. We've become very transactional. This is just a reminder for everybody out there. Please just remember, when you do meet with somebody like myself, make it about you. It is 1000% about you. It is not about me or any one of my colleagues. We are here to serve you and to help you. So I think that if people just can keep that in the back of their head, remind themselves that it's all right to ask for help, you're going to be fine. And just keep interviewing people, do your due diligence, and find that person that you feel that you mesh with and can have a nice conversation with.
That is so true. I'm really glad that you talked on that. And it's unbelievable the misconceptions that we have
Yeah.
as far as like financial planning, because we think that financial advisor and financial planning or talking about finances is taboo. Unfortunately, because we're taught to kind of, we don't talk about our money with other people. We don't talk about if we need anything as far as finances are concerned. We don't really talk about that. Um, let's talk about life insurance. Is that important to have? How does one get life insurance? What is it about?
That's a good question. So talk about taboo or stigma. I think there's a little bit, and this is my opinion, so I could be wrong, but I think there's a little bit of stigma regarding life insurance. And my guess to why that is because the conversation about death comes up in this. So what is life insurance to begin with? Well, the most simple way that I can explain it to you is it's just replacement of money. All it is replacement of money in case a loved one passes away. Now, when my best friend passed away 8 years ago, one of the things that I can honestly say was, from the financial perspective, things were okay. From the emotional perspective, everybody was obviously devastated. And naturally, when we lose loved ones and we lose those that we care about, the emotional devastation is 100% there. But when it comes to the financial devastation, what life insurance does is it replenishes that income or money that was there prior to that person passing away. And so all it is just replacement of income. Um, how do you get life insurance? That's a real good question. And I think that, driving down the road, you get bombarded with, on the radio with commercials, or on the TV, you get bombarded with commercials, and everybody's posting about, I sell life insurance and I do this and I do that. And how do you do it? Well, there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's not a right or wrong way of doing it. The only thing that I would say is, whoever you deal with, just make sure that you ask the questions that you want to ask. Make sure that it's accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish. And I'll give you a quick example. So when you look at life insurance, there's a lot of different variations. And I won't get into all the variations, but the two most basic types, if you will, are term insurance and what they call permanent insurance. So when you look at term insurance, think of it like renting a house or renting an apartment. You rent for maybe a couple years, and then after that, you notify your landlord and you say, all right, I'm moving on. I'm leaving here and I'm going somewhere else. Well, during that time, you've been paying for that rent for that place that you've been staying at, right? And it's been for a specific period of time. And once you leave, you have nothing to show for it. So it's an expense, right? So term insurance is typically for a 10-year period of time, 20 years. Sometimes there's 15, 30-year terms. You can do your research. So first, figure out how long do you want the insurance to last. That's the first thing. The next thing is, if you want it to last forever, you can look into something called permanent insurance. And the big difference between that and term insurance is, instead of renting the house, if you will, you're purchasing the house. And when you purchase a house, you eventually build up equity, right? So unlike term insurance, where it's just an expense and all it is is essentially insurance, permanent insurance, some of them give you the ability to actually use money while you're living. So you could actually use money to go on a vacation. You could use money to start up a business. You could use money to buy a new car. You could use money to buy someone a gift for their birthday coming up in I don't know, a week or so. You could do a lot of different things, right? So those are the big differences. But I would say just write down your questions. Make sure that who you speak to is willing to answer your questions, and make sure that what you want the insurance to cover and to do is being met. Because a lot of times people look for the cheapest price, and cheaper is not necessarily better. So that's my only thing that I'll say on that. But that's something that we talk about and I talk about all the time. I would say that life insurance is essentially the foundation of your financial plan. You've got to be able to protect your most important asset, and that is you yourself having the ability to earn income.
And that's something that we don't think about at all. Life insurance, to protect us. We think about just getting the job, really and truly. We think about health insurance. We don't think about life insurance as well.
Right.
When do you think is I guess the right age to get life insurance?
So life insurance is a tricky thing. I tell people all the time. It's one of those things that you need to get well before you know you need to get it. And the reason why I state that is life insurance is typically based on two things. It's based on age and it's based on your health. So as far as age goes, we get older every year, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, perspective wise, right?
Oh
And as
no,
you
I don't
listen, some people age well and some people don't like the whole age process. So again, it depends on your perspective. But as far as the age goes, life insurance has a tendency of getting more expensive as you get older, and that's only because you become more of a risk to the insurance company. You're closer to death, a thing that we don't want to talk about. But the most important thing, and the reason why I say you need to get it well before you know you need it, is because it's based on your health. So so let's talk about me, for instance. If I'm healthy today, at 34 years old, I have no guarantees whether I'm going to be healthy tomorrow, a month from now, or a year from now. From one day to another, things can drastically change. So to answer that question, it's really essential that you get it well before you know you need it. But that's where really I think a conversation with a financial professional comes in, to be able to figure out what is the best time to get it, what is the best type, how is it going to be able to accomplish the goals that you want to meet, whether you're here or no longer here. And so those are the important conversations.
Okay. And is there like a certain amount that you should kind of aim for as far as life insurance, or just depends on the person?
Yeah, I would say it depends on the person. A good rule of thumb is maybe 10 times your salary, 10 to 20 times your salary. I mean, it really is a preference, from a financial professional standpoint. We have the obligation to do what's right. So our job is to educate and empower people. So whether that person decides to take the amount of insurance that may be recommended to them or not, that's okay. But generally speaking, maybe 10, 20 times, depending. Every situation is a little bit different. And then obviously it boils down to budget and things of that nature. But when you meet with somebody, it all boils down to a process and being able to just be vulnerable and have those tough conversations, quite frankly. And if you can do that, then I think you'll get the answers that you're looking for, and you'll be able to plan accordingly.
Hmm. So with life insurance, you have to have, or with finances in general, you have to have a budget, and life insurance is very, very helpful. For someone who is like an impulsive spender, or um, budgeting seems kind of hard to do meticulously, how would you encourage them? What would you say to that person?
Well, first and foremost, they got to want to change. And when I say they have to want to change is if they feel like they're kind of spending money here and there and it's kind of out of control, and they have an intention of bettering their situation, they truly have to be all in. It's not as easy as kind of creating an account that is not necessarily as accessible to them as like your average bank account. Um, but I would say putting things in perspective, taking a look at your budget is the first step. And if you feel that you're overspending, That's the first step. The second step is if you feel that you're overspending and you don't necessarily have control of your spending, then let whomever you're dealing with and working with, let them know that, and they'll be able to guide you. They'll be able to guide you. There's different things that can be done, but at the end of the day, I think it's really important when you look at saving money that you have a little bit of liquidity or money that's in the bank in case you have a rainy day, in case COVID-19 shows up and you get let go, or business is not as good as what it used to be, those type of things. So there's ways of going about it, but it's a process. And a lot of times people, I think, are fearful of having this conversation because sometimes they feel shame. And I think in the mental health space, a lot of people feel shame when they go and ask for help. I know that when I feel anxiety or I feel a little bit down or depressed, sometimes I don't want to admit it. And that's a normal thing. So with finances, it's no different. It's okay to feel shameful, embrace it, let the person that's trying to help you know, and they're going to help you. They're going to walk you through this, but you're not by yourself on this. So that's not a straight answer to your question. It's a difficult question to answer. But the first step is to want to get that help and really to be all in and try to be a little bit more disciplined.
Mm. Lance says, trust the process.
Oh man, Lance is all about the process. He's got to be a Miami Heat fan with this trust the process culture type of mentality. So yeah, he's right. Trust the process for sure.
That's some great information. Thank you for sharing. So what's kind of like the next step? So after you've done a budget, you've hopefully gotten life insurance. What's the next step? How do you, let's say you want to have children, how do you save for college? Or even if you're a student right now, how do you save for college?
So good question. And going back to my regular answer is every situation is different. And I wish it was easier. And here's another misconception, talking about misconceptions. There is not an easy way to accomplish anything. There is not a set plan for a specific demographic or age group or scenario, if you will. So, in regards to that, when you look at financial planning, and I'll break it down into three different sections for you. The first step is protecting your assets, right? That's the foundation. The next step is savings. That's your emergency account, your 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses in a liquid account in case you need that money. And then the following step after that is making your money grow. And so when you talk about college education, there are various different plans specifically catered to that whole goal of education, where they're a little bit more tax advantageous, if you will. Things like 529 plans or even Florida prepay, which we don't directly deal with, but can help people and guide them as far as whether they, what type of plan they should take regarding the Florida prepay and so forth. But again, going back to what Lance said is, I think it's going through a process. And in order to get the right answers that you're looking for, or in order to be able to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, my only ask is that when you do meet with someone like myself, just be vulnerable and honest as far as what you really want to accomplish. And make it about a true teamwork, team effort in accomplishing those goals. And whether you do it in quicker or whether you do it slower, it's okay. It doesn't matter. There's not a set way of doing it, but there are specific accounts that will help for the purpose of college or education in general.
Awesome. I like those three steps that you said. That's really helpful because like a lot of times we do it flip flop. We want to invest first to like get that return quickly before we kind of like set everything in motion. During COVID, do you think it's wise to invest in anything or in the
Good
market?
question.
Market?
Yeah, so we're in a really complicated year this year with 2020, right? We've got the pandemic. We're in an election year. We're 30 days, give or take, away from the election, right? We got a lot of drama revolving that. And the market, if people paid attention this year, was hit pretty hard when the pandemic came out. We had been riding a nice decade of gains and of a bull market, is what they call it when the market goes up. Now that we've seen a little bit of volatility or the ups and the downs of the market, people are asking, is this a good time to invest? And again, the answer is it depends on the person and where you are. If you've got your foundation set up, if you've got your 3 to 6 months worth of your monthly expenses saved in a liquid account in the bank in case you have an emergency, then there's nothing wrong with setting aside money in specific investments. But this is where I think it's really important for people to reach out to a financial professional. And I call, there's a big thing going on right now. It's like the Robinhood phenomenon. Everybody has downloaded this app, Robinhood. I call it the TikTok of finance, right? Everybody loves this app, and it's really easy to do, where you can go ahead and deposit money in there and invest and buy specific stocks and learn and so forth. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to your concrete goals, whether it's college planning or retirement or saving enough money to buy a new house, those that stuff needs to be done correctly, I would say. And going back to what Lance said again, it's all about trusting the process, making sure that things are done accordingly to the way you feel comfortable, making sure that your risk tolerance is talked about. And when I mean risk tolerance, that's essentially like, if you were on a roller coaster, how would you feel if all of a sudden you went down really quick, you know, and you started to lose money? Is it something that's unbearable to you? Is it something that you can stomach? Is it something that you're okay with? How do you feel about that? And those are the conversations that I have with clients all the time. Once we figure that whole thing out and we figure out whether or not you have a budget to be able to start investing, then we look into the type of portfolio and that matches your risk tolerance and your suitability and so forth. So, answer again to that question is it depends on the person. It is not a bad time to necessarily invest. It is very difficult to time the market. Even the experts have a difficult time doing it. The best thing you can do is just systematically put away money and plan ahead.
I like that you said that. That's really cool. That's really good to know. And I like that you're making it individualized, because a lot of times when people go to these financial advisors or just try to seek help for uh, financial questions, it's like a general grandiose idea that if you invest this much, you're going to get this much money back, and you're going to go rolling, and you're going to be a millionaire in no time. And it's like I'm gathering that's not the process of finances, really and truly. It's a slow and steady, consistent wins the race.
Yeah.
You said that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say really quick on that note, I think as a society, we've been conditioned for whatever reason to think about rate of return. Like, what's the rate of return on my money? Can I get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% rate of return? And if I get a -5, well, what the heck is going on? What's wrong with my advisor? I think there needs to be a little bit of a mind shift, if you will. Instead of looking at rate of return, I think people need to start thinking of the process, but more importantly is how do you maximize the efficiency of every dollar that you make? We're like machines. We wake up every single morning, knock on wood that we have the ability to do so. And we go out there and we have a job and we produce income. So, how do we stretch that dollar that we make every single week, month, year? How do we stretch it out as much as we possibly can? How do we maximize the efficiency to be able to accomplish what we want to accomplish? Because when people work, and it doesn't matter whether you make $50,000, $500,000, or $5 million, everybody has the same exact issue. When you make more money, you spend more money. And the gap between the amount of money that you make and the amount of money that you can save, there's still a little bit of a problem there as far as the gap. Everybody's got the same issue. So maximizing the efficiency, I think, is a little bit more important than rate of return. That's not to negate the whole rate of return conversation. It is important in a lot of different conversations, but it should not be the end all be all, if you will.
B says it best: more money, more problems.
And you know what? That is true for many people.
Yeah, because like when with this pandemic and everything that's going on, a lot of people have lost a lot of money. So now, and people who were already struggling as it is, and this pandemic hit, it really probably wrecked them to their core. What would you say to that, like, single parent that's struggling to like make ends meet? What would you say to them to encourage them financially? Like, what are some of the goals that you would kind of nuggets that you would give to them?
First and foremost, ask for help. Ask for help. Be okay with where you're at. Understand that in most cases, specifically the pandemic, it's not your fault what's going on. It's not your fault that all of a sudden out of nowhere we got hit, with a pandemic, and you may have lost your job or you had a flourishing business and now your business is taking a big hit. It's not your fault. And the other thing that I would say is understand that what you're feeling at this very moment is more normal than not. And it goes back to the mental health thing. When I tell people that my whole life I've struggled with anxiety and depression, it is more normal, I'm convinced, that more people struggle like I do. And like they say, the struggle is real, but the struggle is real for many. And so if you can do those two things and be okay with where you're at, don't necessarily throw the guilt on yourself. I think you'll be in a good position, but once you've come to terms with the situation, it's really, really, really important to ask for help. There's that ostrich effect, if you will. If you've seen the picture of the ostrich sticking their head into the ground, right, and trying to hide from danger, doing nothing is not necessarily an option. And I know that it can be intimidating to have a conversation about finances, or it can be embarrassing, or you may feel some shame, but you just got to find the right person to be able to talk to in regards to that. That right person will be able to understand what you're feeling and help you. And I'll tell you one thing, there is one thing that people have a tendency of doing, and they have a tendency of linking their self-worth with their net worth. And we've got to stop doing that as a society. Whether you make $5,000 a year or you make $5 million a year, it does not have any bearing on the type of individual and person that you are. Success is not all about money. And this is coming from somebody who deals with money all the time. So if you can remind yourself about that, and we can have a mind shift, if you will, right, and normalize this conversation of struggle and it's normal, then I think a lot of people will start to really benefit from relationships with financial professionals. So that would be the few nuggets that I would give people. There's no magic sauce right now. It's a very complicated, difficult situation that we're in currently.
And for those, like the great thing, like you say, the positive thing about this pandemic, it has brought a lot of new business ideas. And a lot of people are kind of going into business for themselves. For those new entrepreneurs, or fairly new entrepreneurs, what advice would you give to them? What tips would you give to them as far as like creating an emergency fund and like saving so that they can ride out the market, so to speak?
Yeah, I would say, well, look at your budget. Plan out as far as what expenses you need with your new venture, if you will. Make sure if you don't have some sort of an emergency account or some sort of reserves, make sure that you have the ability to save for that before you really dive in deep into the business, because a lot of times you'll see businesses where they flourish a couple months and then they have a couple months where they struggle, right? And in business and being an entrepreneur, you never know what's going to be thrown your way. So you got to understand that you're going to have some good months and you're going to have some bad months, and just be prepared and be okay with what's going to come. And again, going back to it, I'm going to drill it like crazy. This is no different with mental health, and this is no different with financial health. This is no different with a lot of things. Ask for help. You do not need to be a millionaire. You do not need to have disposable income to receive the professional help that you deserve. If there's firms out there that have minimums, that doesn't mean that they're bad firms. Their target audience is just a little bit different. There are people out there that are willing to sit down with people who are struggling, and that is okay. You will not struggle forever. So I would say map things out. Yeah, I would say just map things out and really, ask for help. Two heads are always better than one.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are there any other tips? 'Cause I know you had like a whole notebook full of things. Like, what are some of the things that you want to share with us?
Well, let's see. Let me look at my notebook really quick to make sure I've got. No, I mean, I made some notes here because sometimes I lose my train of thought. The one other thing that I would say is communication is essential. I think communication is essential for everything, and it's taken me a long time to realize that. I sometimes struggle with communication, and sometimes I over communicate. And I'm sure there's certain people out there that are watching this saying, "Yeah, you do. You over communicating for sure." And you know who you are that's saying that. But I would say communication is really important. And I think when you look at either business partner relationships or you look at couples, married couples, or boyfriend, girlfriends that are actually living in the same place and they're commingling their finances, it's really important to make sure that you communicate as far as what you're looking to accomplish. Make sure that you communicate as far as what you're trying to attain financially, what your viewpoints are on that, and then see if the other person is on kind of the same wavelength. If they're not, then have a conversation about that, because trust me, even though things may be good financially at one moment, you will have some financial struggles, just like we do with our mental health or our physical health or with anything for that matter. So communication is super important. That is life. That is, and you guys did a good, by the way, you and Lance did a really good, I think you guys did two of them where you guys were talking about relationships and I was blown away. But the one thing, talking to you guys and becoming your friends is you guys have a really good, strong communication skills. And I think I look at you guys as a prime example of communication that has worked. And I think when you're clear and concise and you're respectful of other people's viewpoints, anything can be accomplished.
I have to give him kudos because, like, my communication sometimes comes out as an angry Trini woman.
It
So
happens.
I have to give him kudos for just kind of helping me iron that out. But yeah, communication is definitely the key to every successful relationship, business or personal relationships. Definitely. I think that the misconception too is that when people are saying, save, have an emergency fund for like 3 to 6 months, that terrifies some people. Like, do you think that how would you address that for some people who's extremely terrified about, like, oh man, I have to save 3 to 6 months. I can't even save for this week. How would you encourage them? What would you say to them?
Well, first and foremost, I would say, and I don't know the exact percentage, but I would say way over 50% of the people that I deal with, and again, it doesn't matter the amount of money that you make. It could be 50,000, it could be 500,000 or 500 million. People struggle with budgets all the time. Um, so, you know, I guess just put that into perspective. You only make a certain amount of money in a lot of different jobs. You got to look at your expenses. You got to ask yourself what is kind of an essential thing, a need, and what's a want, you know? And those essential things need to be covered. And part of the essentials is saving for yourself. And I'm not referring to retirement per se. I'm talking about having a balanced lifestyle. I think a lot of times, a lot of people are really scared of this whole emergency account thing or even having this conversation because they're afraid like the big bad wolf, Renzo, is going to come in and say, okay, you're going to go ahead and save every single bit of money that you're making now. And you're not going to be able to go to the movies or you're not going to be able to go out and eat, and it's not about that. It's about balancing. But understanding that the vast majority of people don't have the 3 to 6 months worth of their monthly expenses saved in the account. And even more so now, those who did have it saved, if they lost their job or were furloughed or their business took a big hit, they may have depleted their 3 to 6 months rather quickly during COVID. So now they've got to figure out how not only to survive, but how to build that back up. And that's really a daunting task to do by yourself. It's a really scary situation to be in. So ask for help.
And it's doable. It's definitely doable. Don't get down on yourself because it definitely can happen. I know, a couple, probably like last year, I was struggling in between jobs and stuff, and the car was repossessed. And thank God, we had an emergency fund because we met you, and we had an emergency fund, and we were able to get the car and do all the things that we needed to do. So I think it's emergency fund is definitely helpful for sure. Um, I had the misconception of an emergency fund is for when you want to go out or buy something really, really nice. That's not a necessity. So that was my misconception that I had to work on. So it's definitely discipline comes with it because you really want to succeed. You really want to be successful.
Yeah, I would say though, on that note, you bring up a good point. So, listen, we're human. I think we all deserve to treat ourselves. So when you talk about an emergency fund, I think it's also really important that when you're speaking to your spouse or to your business partner or to your financial professional, whomever it is, that if there's certain things that you want to do, like let's say you want to take a trip once a year, right? And you want to spend X amount of dollars, that you have the ability to save for that. Maybe create a separate account specifically for the purpose of being able to accomplish that goal that you want to achieve of going on a vacation once a year. If there's something that you really want to buy, map it out. You don't necessarily have to get something instantaneously. And I think as a society, we love instantaneous satisfaction, if you will. um, there is no such thing. It's very difficult to attain. Going back to what Lance said, it's trust the process. But having a budget and having an emergency account does not mean not having a life. It's very important for your mental health to be able to have a true balance, to be able to enjoy the good that life brings you at the same time as being responsible, knowing that if something doesn't necessarily go the way you had planned it, you're going to be okay as well.
And I think that that's a golden nugget right there because life doesn't go as planned at all. Like you can
Right.
be so excited that you saved 6 months, 8 months of your savings, and then an emergency happens, and you gotta start all over. But it's life; it ebbs and flows. So it's really cool. It's really cool. I'm really glad that we're having this conversation, and I'm just making sure that I don't have any other questions for you, or if you have any other comments feel free to share.
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is just be kind to yourself, understand that you're not alone, and ask for help. I'm going to keep saying that it's really important to ask for help. If you're really concerned about how if someone's going to judge you, our job as financial professionals is not to judge. Our job is to be there as a support system. We're not there to tell you what to do. We're really there to educate and to empower. And I think as a society, we've done a not so great job when it comes to financial literacy. And so it's our job as in the financial industry to be able to kind of fill in that gap, provide that financial literacy, because a lot of times when they have that clarity or they have a little bit of education, they feel a little bit more empowered. Their self-esteem goes up, their mental health improves, and they feel like they can start to conquer and achieve things that before they felt that it was too daunting, too much that they couldn't even handle it. So, ask for help. There are people out there like myself that are more than willing to have a conversation. You know, don't worry about how much it's going to cost. I'll tell you right off the bat, I don't have a problem talking to anybody, and this goes to anybody out there, whoever, feels overwhelmed or just wants to have a conversation. I'm here. I'm always here and available to have that conversation, a complimentary conversation. That is not a problem at all. And you know that firsthand. So ask for help is the key thing here.
So, how do people reach you?
They
Where,
call
where
me on the phone. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's very easy. You can give them my cell number if you'd like. I don't know if there's a place that you can put it. I'm on Facebook. People can reach me out there. They can go on our website at the firm, which is One South Florida WA.com, and you'll see my information there. People are more than willing to reach out to me. There is no right or wrong way of reaching out to me, and I'll be more than happy to set up a time just to chat. So I don't know if there's a way that you can actually put some of my information there in case somebody has any questions or concerns or they feel overwhelmed, but I'll be more than happy to address anything.
that is awesome. And I am on your website right now. So, I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, this doesn't go bad.
And I don't know if my email is there or my cell, but you're more than willing to, if you want to put it on screen somehow, you definitely can.
So, just One South Florida WA.com. It's
Right.
there. And, you know, about us, our team. Let's see. This is everyone, lovely people. These are all the people that can be helpful to you as well. And there's Renzo. There's his contact information. There's his email address, so you guys can see it. And just check out the website. And there's a bunch of other people there too that you can contact. Financial literacy is available and it is doable. It's not. It's no longer like a feeling of out of reach because I know like a lot of times in our community, the people of color community, it seems like it's out of our reach. And here's a key example that shows that, there are people out there who are willing to help us and to guide us through this financial literacy, because we're not taught this in school.
Yeah,
We're
no,
not.
for sure. And Danielle, I don't know if you have the ability, because I don't know what I'm able to do, but if you want to put my information, email or cell number on the comment section, that way people can see it easier, that's okay too. That is perfectly okay. Whatever is easier for people, or if they want to reach out to you and so forth. And we have plenty of people on my team that specialize in different things. So if for whatever reason my personality doesn't match your personality, there is someone there that will help. And there are a lot of other colleagues and a lot of financial professionals within South Florida that do a very good job that are there to help as well.
Absolutely. And there's do you guys do telework, or do you guys do like over the phone? Because I know that with COVID and everything, what is kind of your way?
So what's the process? Good question. So now with COVID, obviously there's different levels of people being comfortable right now. I would say that 99% of my meetings, if you will, or conversations have been through Zoom. Zoom has really worked wonders. It's not the same as coming into my office and having a one-on-one conversation. It's always nice to be there with somebody in person, but Zoom is definitely an option. I take phone calls for the first, just to get an idea of who I'm speaking with, and so that they can kind of hear me and get to know me a little bit. But the consultation, if you will, the appointment, it can be in person or in Zoom. And I would say now with COVID, a lot of people feel more comfortable with Zoom, but now with technology, it's very, very easy. And first meeting, just so everybody knows, is strictly dialogue. So no one needs to feel intimidated or, oh my goodness, I don't know where my stuff is and stuff like that. Everybody has different levels where they're at when it comes to financial literacy. Some of us are more organized than others. I'm very organized with certain things, and I'm very disorganized with certain things. So um, don't feel like you're going to be judged at all. Just go in there and feel comfortable to have a conversation. And my only ask would be, and whether you deal with me or with anybody else, is be open and honest with them as far as what is important to you. Don't worry about us. Our job is to be there for you. That's what it's about. So that's essentially how we work. But Zoom has worked wonders during the time of COVID, and I'm hoping that we're going to get back to normalcy. That way, people can come and visit the office, and we can have a nice conversation and get to know each other in person. I think that's always better than on Zoom, of course.
Understandable. Where are you guys located? Are you guys in Palm County, or where are you guys located?
So we're in Broward County. We're in Plantation, just north of University. I would say smack dab between Weston and Fort Lauderdale. So, we're a bit of a drive to Palm Beach or to the Jupiter area, if you will. We're a little bit of a drive to Miami, but I would say that between the Tri-County area, we're pretty centrally located. So,
It is worth the trip.
yeah. So, as long as traffic's not horrendous and you don't get stuck with an accident, you should be okay.
Awesome. But I think Zoom is a really good option for those of you who are looking to talk with Renzo or anyone else at the firm. I love the fact that your firm is really involved in the community and involved in mental health. That speaks volumes to what you guys do, that it's not just all about finances, it's about the people in the community too. So that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, Renzo, thank you again for coming on the show and talking to us about finances. And if anyone else wants to get your information, I will put it in the chat in YouTube so you guys can have it there. Don't worry, I'm just going to put your email address because I don't want you to get bombarded with telephone
Okay.
calls.
Absolutely.
But thank you again for tuning in. And our next episode of the Pearl Kennedy Group, we are going to talk about seasonal depression, because now that we are in fall, and well, fall in Florida, but everywhere else is getting cold and everyone's kind of even more shut in. So we're going to talk about that in our next episode. And following that, I'll be back with my husband and we're going to talk about relationships. So thank you
Awesome.
again, Renzo, and
Thanks,
Beth. Thank
Danielle.
you for tuning in, and everyone else who tuned in. I appreciate it. And I will catch you guys on the next show where we talk about mental health, relationships, and life. This is the Pearl Tips Talk Show. And remember, you're worth way more than pearls. Take care, everyone.